And people move for many, many reasons, right? So today we'll talk about why people move, why people choose to move places, right? So migration, again, the definition of migration is the movement of people from one place to another. Usually it's from one country to another. There's also something called internal migration. Internal migration means the movement inside of a country. Most of the time though, when we study migration, it's usually the typical circumstance of people moving from one country to another country. Again, internal migration does occur. Sometimes people move between cities in a country, right? Maybe we move from Lubumbashi to Kinshasa, right? That is also migration. That is internal migration. Again, when we talk about migration, most of the time people travel long distances, which is not internal migration, external migration. Why do people migrate? Can somebody tell me, why do you think people migrate? Yes?
For many reasons. One of the reasons is economic reasons, climate reasons.
Climate reasons, economic, yeah.
War reasons.
War is a good reason, yes.
Yes, I mean, people migrate to look for where they can survive.
Yes.
Where.
Yes. Yes.
I think there are many different reasons why people migrate. It's maybe social, political, economic,
Yes.
and also, yeah,
Professional.
Many reasons, right, why people move. And most of the time, the core reason, the crux of why people move is to survive, right? Most of the time, it's their existing conditions that do not create a condition whereby they can survive. So because of this forces people to move. Not all the time though. Sometimes people are living in comfortable conditions, but they want to move for better opportunities, for more chances to survive, right? Better opportunities for themselves, right? So today we'll talk a bit about why people move. First is, of course, search for new opportunities, right? A lot of times people leave because they feel that their current conditions don't offer them enough opportunities. The best example is jobs, right? A lot of people move to find better jobs. Poverty. Many people move to escape poverty. Does anyone know what poverty is?
Yes.
What is poverty?
Lack of means.
Lack of means. Or to put it in layman's terms, poor.
Poor.
Right?
Yeah.
So people move to escape war, to escape poverty, right? A big one that we'll talk about today is escaping war and conflict. Wars are one of the biggest reasons why human migration exists, right? A lot of people fear for their safety, people move to find a sense of safety, comfort, so people leave, right? We'll talk today about the Vietnam War, which happened. I'll give you a bit of a history of myself today. We'll talk about the Vietnam War back in 1975, which is why my parents left Vietnam, which is why I'm American, why I'm Canadian, right? Escape environment degradation. Remember we talked about climate change last week?
Yeah.
And we talked about the effects of climate change. What was one of the effects of climate change? That we talked about? Displacement, which is why humans migrate, right? And why do people become displaced? Why does human displacement occur due to climate change? What was one of the reasons? Drought, right? We talked about drought. Climate change causes extreme weather conditions, right? And when climate change causes extreme weather conditions, we have flooding and we have droughts. And what happens? People can no longer survive. So we talked about the displacement of humans. And people had to move. The migration of people. Many people, whole villages, right, were moving. So people escape their environment because they cannot survive. So, getting down to academic study. When we're studying migration, and we're studying, this is actually a class that I took in when I was in college. And the academic term, we have something called push factors and pull factors. Push factors are forces that push people out of their country. There are things that we look at to determine why people are forced to be pushed out of their existing country to a new location. That's what a push factor is. And just think of the term itself, push, right? Why am I being pushed out of my country, right? A lot of times when we talk about push factors, it has to do with wanting to escape something. So one of the push factors we talk about is war, right? We've experienced war even here, have we not? Years ago. War is one of the primary reasons that people decide to leave their homes, right? Anywhere war happens, nobody wants to be in a place of war, am I correct?
Yeah.
Fear of safety. There are a lot of people who, even if there are no wars, people still fear their safety. There's a lot of places in the world where police brutality exists every single day. People fear for their safety, right? Poverty, we just talked about poverty. A lot of people want to escape their current countries because there are just no opportunities, right? Extreme poverty. Even when we're talking about drought causes poverty, am I correct?
Yeah.
Drought causes poverty because we have no food, no water, no circumstances for human survival. And so people are forced to be pushed out of their home, pushed out of their country, right? Natural disaster. You know, there's a lot of talk now in California. As you know, I lived in California, so I always keep up the news from Los Angeles. And there's always talk about an earthquake coming. You know, they talk that they've been doing scientific research. And they say that on the west coast in California, they're predicting a very large earthquake. You know, an earthquake that will likely, cause extreme damage, extreme devastation. So with these disasters, people are forced to be pushed out of their homes, right? Moving away. Push factors. Can anyone give me another example of why people, pardon me?
Disaster.
Disaster, yeah?
It's just happening that in the eastern part of the Congo. We have mountain 121.
Right, by Virunga. Yes, yes.
With Bassa, with lava, and people.
Yes. Any other factors we can think of? Yeah.
Crop failure.
Crop failure, right? When we can't grow crops, what happens?
And also lack of services.
Lack of services. Give me an example of a lack of service. Yeah.
Well, suppose that I live in a country where I need a service for my company, for example, a specific service, but the country doesn't provide me with service I need to.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I highlight most of the fact. Currently in my country, people used to try for health tourism and education. Most of the time they go to India.
Very
for
correct.
health
Yes.
tourism.
Yes.
Health tourism.
Yes.
But we are not like medical care and people can move to another country.
Right. Searching for better opportunities, right? So now we think push factors. We'll soon talk about pull factors, what pulls people to a new country. But when you think about it, push factors and pull factors sometimes are related, are interlinked. So today we'll be talking a little bit about history. History, as you know, throughout my class, I always show you videos. I talk about certain events that happened, right? We talked about the one-child policy in China. Did everyone see that? We talked for 10 minutes.
Yes.
All right.
I just put it a little near
Do you have another
Teacher.
Yes.
I wish you had to take an hour of recording because I'll mind it.
Sure, we'll record for another 10 minutes. All right. The recording's for me, actually. I just want to see, how I'm doing. All right. So this session, remember we talked about the one-child policy in China? Do we all remember that? We talked about gendercide in India. Do you remember that?
Yes.
We talked about drought in Africa, specifically in Sudan. So I always try to talk about different parts of the world, right? So we're talking about global policy. Today's a bit of a history about me, actually. Does anyone remember what country my heritage is from?
Yeah.
Where am I from? Vietnamese, right? My story of where I am and how I landed to where I became has a lot to do with migration, right? And it has a lot to do with migration. Back in 1975, there was a civil war in Vietnam. We had northern Vietnam, southern Vietnam. My family was from South Vietnam, which is now called Ho Chi Minh City. It was previously called Saigon. North Vietnam was communist territory. It's a very brutal, communist, very authoritarian-like government. South Vietnam was a democracy, freedom. One day, North Vietnam wanted to invade South Vietnam, take over the whole country. And that's what caused a huge war, right? My parents being from southern Vietnam, they were exposed to democracy. They were not used to communism, right? So let's look at Vietnam on a map here. So we are here in Africa, in Congo. Vietnam is right here. So we're almost aligned, actually. Almost aligned. So here's Vietnam. So this is southern Vietnam, this is northern Vietnam. So my family was from here, and northern Vietnam wanted to take over South Vietnam, and that caused a civil war. It was actually a huge war, and it caused a lot of devastation, Back then we didn't have color pictures, so I don't have any color pictures to show you, but back then it caused so much devastation, so much fear. For years, this war, ravaged the entire country. And still today, you'll see, if you ever go back to, when I visit Vietnam, you'll see that, there are some villages that are still ravaged by war. You still see these broken helicopters just abandoned, in the fields, in the villages, right? So back then, the war had caused so much fear in people. My parents used to tell me that, we were so scared, we would hear bombs right outside our home, right? Imagine going to sleep at night and waking up constantly hearing bombs, gunshot. These are just young children running away from war. When I see these pictures, it makes me think, of my own parents, being so young and just trying to run away from, this devastating war. Especially when you're young, you don't know anything, right? You don't know what the situation is, right? You're just thinking, I'm fearing for my own life, right? So you'll see lots of devastating pictures. And this is actually right here. This is the iconic picture that got the world to say stop the war. It even got America's attention to stop the war. This is actually a picture of a huge bomb that was from the helicopters thrown into a village. Innocent people, innocent young children in a village, and these kids just running away, right? I look at this picture and I can say this could be, my parents, right? This could be anybody. So, what happened? So much fear, so much devastation. People are forced to leave. This is a push factor, am I right?
Yeah.
People are fearing for their lives because of sitting here and a bomb going out right here. How scary is that, right? We can't live in a situation where bombs are just going off left and right? Fear for safety. So as a push factor of migration, thousands of Vietnamese people were forced to flee their home. Now back then, today we have airplanes, we have air travel, Back then, back in the early mid-70s, a lot of people were just way too poor to buy, an airplane ticket. This war happened, in the devastating, villages, right? And even today, my parents were saying back then, when war happened, we just had to take whatever we had on our clothes that we were wearing at the time, a small bag, and just leave. We had no option to pack more, just a small bag, right? And we had to leave because we had no choice. So imagine if a war happened right now and you only had what you have here right now.